What if I told you the most powerful message you could ever send to someone who broke your heart is silence? No text, no call, no explanation. Just gone. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in control. Calm, cold, focused. See, here's the part they never tell you. When she left, she expected you to fall apart. She expected drama, tears, desperation, you crawling back, trying to convince her why she made a mistake. Because most men do. Most men panic when they lose what they think they can't live without. But you're not most men. You chose the one response she never saw coming. Nothing. And that is what starts to destroy her. Not instantly, not overnight, but slowly, deeply, in places even she can't admit to herself. Because silence is confrontational. It doesn't soothe her ego. It doesn't validate her choices. It forces her to wonder. It haunts her with questions. Why isn't he chasing me? Did I mean nothing? Did he already move on? The woman who once had all your attention now sits in the shadow of your absence. And while she scrolls, waiting for a post, a DM, a signal that you still care, you're not waiting, you're rebuilding, in silence, in solitude. You're stepping into Stoicism, not as a shield, but as a sword. Because this is bigger than revenge. This is rebirth. This is the story of the man who decided that heartbreak wasn't the end. It was the fire. And now, it's her turn to feel the cold. If you're done explaining your worth to people who never deserved your presence, if you're done giving energy to someone who fed off your pain, hit that like button. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. My silence is my power. Now let's begin. Number 1. Silence screams louder than words. When you go no contact, most people think it's just a tactic, a game, a way to make her miss you. But this isn't about her missing you. This is about taking your energy back. Real no contact isn't about sulking in the dark, waiting for her to return. It's about recentering your life where she's no longer the gravity everything spins around. Because here's the brutal truth. Silence isn't passive. It's aggressive in the most elegant way possible. It's psychological warfare, and it doesn't require words. You remove your presence. You withdraw your energy. You disappear from the stage where she expected you to keep performing, and now she's left with the echo. She checks her phone and sees nothing. She posts something meant for you and hears crickets. No reaction, no curiosity, just stillness. And that stillness, it starts to make her spiral, because people don't panic when they lose control of you. They panic when they realize they never really had it. That's what your silence represents. It says, you were never the source of my peace. You were just a distraction from the chaos I hadn't yet mastered. Now she feels that absence. She feels your detachment like a void that mocks her every time she reaches out and finds nothing. This is the paradox she can't process. How you went from heartbroken to indifferent without warning. That's what silence does. It creates mystery. And mystery creates obsession. Not because you're manipulating her, but because you're finally operating on your terms. Quiet, clear, focused, stoic. She hears the silence, and for the first time, she's forced to listen. Number 2. She expected you to beg. The moment she pulled away, she had a picture in her head of you chasing, of you breaking down, second-guessing everything, pleading for another chance. That's what she thought would happen. Why? Because that's the cycle she's used to. Push a man away, watch him prove himself. Test his value by watching him suffer. But when you didn't take the bait, when you didn't play the role she cast you in, it rattled something deep inside her. Because women don't regret leaving the man who begged. They regret leaving the man who vanished. When she didn't hear from you, she didn't feel empowered. She felt uncertain. She questioned everything. Why isn't he reacting? Did he stop caring just like that? That confusion, that is where the power shifts. You're not silent because you're weak. You're silent because you're strong enough to walk away from someone who made you feel replaceable. And that strength, that unshakable calm, it tears through her ego like a blade, because it tells her you don't need her validation, you don't need her closure, you don't even need her explanation. See, when you choose Stoicism, you're not pretending to be above the pain. You're mastering it, you're owning it, you're using it. And that makes you dangerous in all the ways she didn't prepare for. You're no longer a man trying to be chosen. You're the man she's starting to realize she should have never tested. She thought you'd beg. She thought she had you figured out. Now she's stuck wondering if she ever knew you at all. Number 3. The void haunts her. There's something about absence that no amount of attention can replace. When you were there, she could predict you. You were accessible. You responded. You cared. But now, you've become a ghost in her world, silent, detached, untraceable. And that silence creates a void. Not just a physical absence, but a psychological one. A black hole where her influence used to live. She tries to fill it with distractions, posts, dates, validation, but none of it hits the same. Because what's missing isn't noise. It's your presence, your attention, your energy. People don't miss you when you're around. They miss you when everything they once took for granted is suddenly gone. And that's what's tearing her up now, not the breakup, but the vacuum you left behind. She doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know if you've moved on, if you're thriving, or if you've completely erased her. And the mind hates that kind of ambiguity. It starts to invent stories. It overanalyzes silence. Every day you stay quiet, her curiosity turns into frustration, and frustration turns into obsession. That's the power of detachment. Not coldness, not cruelty, just emotional discipline. You stop feeding her ego. You stop rewarding the behavior that disrespected your worth. And in doing so, you take up more space in her mind than you ever did when you were available. She thought losing you meant gaining freedom, but what she got instead was a void, deep, quiet, and impossible to ignore. Number 4. Your evolution is her mirror. When a man levels up in silence, the world notices, but the one who hurt him feels it the most. Because nothing hits harder than seeing someone you once dismissed become everything you secretly feared he could be. You're not posting revenge quotes. You're not trying to show off. You're just working, quietly, relentlessly, and every time she checks in, because trust me, she does, she sees glimpses of a man becoming unrecognizable, more focused, more disciplined, more untouchable. See, growth isn't just about improvement, it's confrontation. It holds up a mirror to those who never believed in you. It makes her ask questions she doesn't want the answers to. Was I the reason he held back? Did I really underestimate him? And most damning of all, did I lose him right before he became the man I actually needed? That's the sting. That's what eats at her quietly while she pretends to be unbothered. Because you're not trying to win her back, you're becoming the version of yourself who no longer needs to. You're not just healing, you're evolving. Mind, body, mission. That version of you? It makes her rethink everything, and she'll never admit it. Not out loud, not to her friends, but every photo she sees, every improvement you make, every ounce of discipline you gain, it reminds her, you didn't fold, you transformed, and now every step forward is a step further away from the man she thought you were. Number 5. She wanted power, not peace. The harsh truth is, she didn't want resolution. She wanted dominance, control, emotional leverage. That's why the breakup wasn't clean. That's why she left doors open. That's why she dropped breadcrumbs, just enough to keep you questioning. hoping, staying in orbit. Because as long as you were uncertain, she was in control. But when you cut that off, when you refused to play the emotional ping-pong, when you stopped reacting, she lost the very thing she was feeding off, your attention. Peace doesn't serve people who thrive on power. And your silence? It disrupts her ability to control the narrative. No more guilt trips, no more confusion, no more blurred lines. You made it clear, you're done. Not with bitterness, not with hate, just done. That kind of closure, the kind she didn't give you, hits different when it comes from within. Because now she can't poke the wound anymore. There's no wound to poke. You've sealed it. You've outgrown the game. And that's what shakes her. You didn't just leave her world. You stopped letting her rule yours. You're not at war. You're not seeking revenge. You're at peace. And that peace, that stillness, that control, it makes her feel powerless in a way she never expected, because the moment she realized she couldn't reach you emotionally was the moment she started losing the grip she thought she'd never need to tighten. Number 6. Stoic control drives her crazy. Most people think power looks loud, anger, outbursts, dominance. But real power, stoic power, it's quiet, it's unshaken. It's you walking away without a word, without closure, without making a scene. And that restraint, that calm detachment is what truly unhinges her. Because she can't provoke you, she can't get a reaction. And in a world addicted to attention and validation, your emotional control is pure chaos to her system. She thought she could spark something in you, jealousy, rage, sadness, something to make her feel relevant again. But instead, you gave her nothing, no response, no weakness to exploit. And that's what makes her spiral. Because you're not just silent, you're centered. You've learned to sit with the pain instead of escaping it. You've learned to observe your emotions instead of being ruled by them. That's Stoicism. That's high ground she can't reach. And now, every time she tests the waters, liking an old post, showing up in your orbit, sending subtle signals, she's met with stillness. And that stillness, it reflects everything she doesn't want to face about herself. That she didn't break you, that her power over you was an illusion, that you didn't just survive the storm, you became the storm. Calm, precise, unshakable. She tried to use emotion to manipulate you, but you mastered yours. Now the game is over, and she's the only one still playing. Number 7. Attraction through indifference. Here's the paradox. The less you chase, the more magnetic you become. Not because you're pretending not to care, but because you've truly stopped needing her validation. And that shift? It's devastating to her ego. See, when you were available, she had options, control, power. But now that you've stepped back and reclaimed your focus, your absence becomes a trigger. Not because you're being cruel, but because you're finally being unavailable. And for someone used to attention on demand, that's unbearable. Indifference isn't about faking it. It's about arriving at a place where her presence or absence doesn't define your direction. You're too busy building, too focused on growth, too grounded in your mission to be pulled back into emotional chaos. And ironically, that's what pulls her in. She starts to feel what she never expected, attraction to the version of you that doesn't need her anymore, the version that sees her as an option, not a prize. She'll never admit it, but she starts chasing the very thing she once dismissed. Your silence, your focus, your indifference. Because now, you're no longer the man trying to win her over. You're the man she suddenly has to qualify herself to. And that dynamic shift? That's the crack in her armor. You didn't become desirable by pursuing her. You became desirable by letting go. That's not manipulation. That's evolution. Number 8. The fantasy she had is dead. She didn't fall for who you really were. She fell for the version of you that bent, softened, and sacrificed just to keep her. The agreeable man, the always available man, the man who placed her above himself. But that man is gone now. Not because you turned cold, but because you woke up. You saw the game. You saw the imbalance. And you decided to kill the version of you that tolerated it. That version was the fantasy she depended on, the emotional safety net she thought would always be there. And now that he's dead, she's grieving in silence, whether she knows it or not, because the man you're becoming doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't cling. He doesn't chase. He moves like a ghost, visible only to those who earned his presence. She expected you to be stuck in the past, orbiting her memory. But instead, she's the one haunted by yours. Because this new version of you, grounded, silent, disciplined, is everything she tried to mold you into. Only now it's on your terms, and she's not invited. You didn't become bitter, you became boundaried, and that difference is critical. You stopped giving your best to someone who gave you breadcrumbs. You stopped sacrificing yourself for someone who wasn't willing to meet you halfway. That fantasy she had, of a man she could manipulate, re-enter, and retreat from at will. It's over. You're not who you were, and she knows it. Even if her pride won't let her say it, deep down she feels the shift. And that realization, that's what hurts her more than any breakup ever could. Number 9, she regrets it, but her pride won't let her say it. Regret doesn't always look like an apology. Sometimes it looks like watching your story from the shadows, lurking, checking your page but never reaching out, pretending she's moved on while secretly hoping you haven't. Because the truth is, she does regret it, the way she handled things, the disrespect, the assumption that you'd never walk away, but she'll never say it, not out loud, because to admit that she lost a man who became better without her, that's a wound her pride can't bear. Pride is her armor. It's what keeps her from texting you late at night. It's what stops her from admitting she still thinks about you when no one's watching. But underneath that mask is the quiet sting of realization. She let go of something real, thinking she could always come back to it. Only now, the door is closed. Not slammed, not locked in anger, just quietly closed. And that silence, that mature indifference, it cuts deeper than any fight ever could. Because she expected you to linger, to hold space for her in case she changed her mind. But instead, you evolved past the point of return, and now her ego has to live with that. She watches the glow-up, the transformation, the emotional mastery, and it eats at her, piece by piece, that the man you've become is no longer accessible. She regrets it, she just won't say it. Not because she doesn't feel it, but because admitting it would mean accepting she lost something she never fully valued until it was gone. Number 10, you never needed her to begin with. This whole time, you thought she was the answer, the one who made you feel alive, the one who completed the picture. But here's what you've realized. The hole you felt wasn't shaped like her. It was shaped like purpose, like self-respect, like discipline. She didn't complete you. She distracted you from the work you were avoiding. And when she left, that pain you felt, it wasn't about losing her. It was about being forced to face yourself. And that's where the real shift happened. Because now, you're not trying to prove anything to her. You're not chasing closure. You're not waiting for a message that may never come. You've stepped fully into your own power. Not the loud kind, not ego, but the quiet, unshakable kind. The kind that comes from knowing you are whole, without needing her approval, her presence, or her attention. You never needed her. You needed you. And now that you've remembered who that is, there's no going back. She might reach out. She might test the waters. But it won't matter. Because when a man becomes grounded in himself, He stops needing anyone else to hold him up. That's Stoicism. That's freedom. And that's why she's the one left wondering. Not because you played the game better, but because you stopped playing entirely. You broke the pattern, you healed, you moved forward. And in doing so, you became the man you were always meant to be. Untouchable. Complete. Enough. She'll never admit it. She'll never say the words. But deep down, you know the truth. Your silence, your growth, your control, it's tearing her apart. Not because you punished her, not because you played games, but because you walked away with dignity. You chose self-respect over validation, purpose over pain, peace over chaos. And now she's left with the echo of the man she thought she could always come back to, but can't reach anymore. That's the power of no contact when it's rooted in true Stoicism. You don't run, you don't react, you rise, and every time you choose discipline over desperation, she feels it. Not in her inbox, not in her notifications, but in that quiet place where regret lives. You didn't just survive heartbreak, you mastered it. You turned it into fuel. And now, the man who was once broken is untouchable. If you're done chasing ghosts, if you're ready to reclaim your power, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below, "I don't chase, I ascend." Thanks for watching Stoic Blessing.